Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter, where I talk to guests who are either professionals in the mental health space, advocates of mental health, or those that live with or experience a mental health challenge. But really, Wednesdays are all about that warrior story. What have what experiences have people been through in their life that really has led them into being this warrior in their life? And also, it's a place to showcase different people's experience and bring in that piece of hope so that maybe if you identify with a portion of whatever story is being told, then you know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, or there really is that hope behind whatever you may be experiencing. And as a reminder, if you are watching this again and not as your first time, mash down the subscribe button if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're watching it on any of the streaming platforms, make sure you add us to your favorites or your watch list or whatever that button is so that you don't miss another episode, because I promise you every single guest that I have is just incredible. And for whatever reason, they all keep just toppling over each other, and it's really good information for you to have. So I go live on Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, and also on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And Monday is Mental Health Mondays, and then Wednesdays is Warrior Wednesdays. So whichever show you might be happening, you might happen to watch, just make sure that you add us to your favorites and or subscribe. But I am really excited. That was a long-winded intro. I am really excited to bring on my guest today, one of my good friends, Casey. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. Well,
Yeah.
tell the audience a little bit about yourself and about your story.
Yeah, I'd love to. So first of all, I want to start by sharing how you pronounce my last name. So people always ask me because it's spelled funny, and it's Fight, like Fight Club. And it's a perfect name for me. I married into it. I kept it with my daughter's name. And it's funny because I am a fighter. It's not funny. Yeah, I am a fighter. I've been a fighter my entire life. Mental health has been a big part of my life since I can remember, even before we called it mental health. I started out on this planet with pretty severe traumatic asthma, life-threatening asthma, in and out of the hospital for the first decade of my life. And that was really hard. As I kind of came out of that, um, I won't go into this in depth, but I end up, really being in active addiction. Drugs and alcohol were my way to soothe myself because I didn't have any mental health skills at the time. And I'm happy to say in about 6 weeks, I'll have 21 years of recovery. So 20 years right now. No fronts is what we say in recovery. Um, but so mental health has been a huge part of my life. And I've gone through a lot of ups and downs along the way. And more recently, as of, well, we all went through the pandemic, right? The last couple of years have been really hard. The pandemic was hard for me because I lost my business. I had a kids yoga business, which is very in person with kids after school, in school, summer camps, you name it, I did it with kids. And that just completely went away. And then I got another health and wellness coaching job somewhere there in the middle. And then last year, they had massive layoffs. They laid off like 2,000 coaches. So it was pretty big. So I was really just ready to start building up my business again, after the pandemic, kind of changing how it was going to look. And in October of 2022, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was just like, really? Really? Like, I haven't had enough challenges in my life. But I'm so grateful because along the way, I found my spiritual path, my spiritual community and connection. And it's really, to me, it's almost a mental health type path. It's a divine or spirit understanding, which is very similar to the 12 steps. And that's really a big part of what's kept me going. But NLP has also been a huge part of that. I started going through trainings to become an NLP coach around that same time. And again, a great group of friends, Kelly and a couple others included, we all went through these trainings together, which was really incredible. And in October, I mentioned I was diagnosed. In November, I had surgery. I had a lumpectomy, which means they basically just take the tumor out of my breast. And then all the cancer was gone, right? So I had stage 1 cancer. I experienced it. I didn't have it. I went through that experience. But based on my test scores, they wanted me to do some therapy that is almost preventative, so it won't come back in the next 10 years. And so I did some chemotherapy starting in January of this year. I just did a couple sessions, and this is where mental health really saved my life, like my understanding of it, because I was in a really dark place after chemo. I mean, it basically is the most toxic thing you can put in your body. There's nothing else on the planet that's that toxic. And so what it does is it kills all the growth cells in your body. So it kills the potential growing cancer, but it also kills the cells that make your hair grow, that make your stomach, your digestive system work, your breathing system. So your bones growing. So I was in pretty extreme pain for the first 2 or 3 weeks after my first chemo session. And then this happened. My hair fell out. So those of you who haven't seen me, my hair was down to here, big, thick, beautiful hair. And I was just devastated. Along the way here, tell me if I'm talking too much. I can stop.
No, you're good. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
So, along the way, when I first found out I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I decided that I was going to share it to be able to inspire and support other people. So I started a YouTube playlist or channel. I had a channel already, and just sharing my journey, 10 to 20-minute videos of all the things I was going on. Because once you get diagnosed with breast cancer, you suddenly get a degree in breast cancer. It's expansive, and 1 in 8 women get breast cancer. And every woman's breast cancer is different. Men can get breast cancer too. Everyone's is different because of all these different markers and tests and scores. So when my hair started falling out, I kind of stopped my videos. I felt like, you know what? And I started hiding. I was hiding from the world, and I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't want anyone to see me. I was in so much pain. So I just kind of disappeared for a couple months. And I just talked to my sister today. She said she was kind of worried about me, because that wasn't me. And so I went to this retreat at the beginning of just last month, or the end of last month. And I felt like I was in this really safe place. We did a lot of processing, and a lot of it is very much like NLP, where I was really present with these feelings that I was having, all this frustration around losing my hair. But I was in such a great, safe space. And I decided, we were all like 50 people in this big, huge circle. And I decided to step into the circle. And this is what I said. I said, I feel so safe in this place that I had a hat on at the time, that I'm willing to show you all my Jack Nicholson hair. This is my Jack Nicholson hair. And it was even worse a month or 2 ago. And I just took my hat off and decided, you know what? I am strong. I am a warrior. I don't need to hide. And I'm not going to necessarily keep it like that. But I have some pretty severe bald spots. I lost 80% of my hair. Again, which is devastating, but I am not my hair, right? I am who I am. And, all along the way, hope has been a huge part of this. So I could go on and on for a couple hours, Kelly. So I'm going to stop right there
No,
for a
you're
moment.
good. No, I mean, just having the conversation about like what experiences you have been through. And I do want to just go back for a minute to when you were born, right? I know that that is a big part of your story, and I've heard it a couple times, but I think it's also important for the audience to know where you started. So, can you tell me just a little bit more about when you were born and what that looked like?
Yeah, for sure. You're right. That's, I mean, so I've evolved 5 decades now, and there has been this really amazing story. So I came into the world, like I mentioned, with my asthma. At 6 months. They thought I was going to die, because I couldn't breathe. And, soon after that, I started taking medication. And I'm talking hardcore steroids. I got shots all the time. And basically, my childhood was growing up in and out of the hospitals. So I would, I'd just be home. Maybe I run around outside, and then suddenly I'm wheezing. I'm short of breath. I can't breathe. I have rescue inhalers. They wouldn't work. And then so my parents would rush me to the hospital, where I'd spend a week or two in the hospital trying to feel better. And they were just, had IVs in my arms. Um, I don't remember this in real depth, but when I was pretty young, I actually like pulled all the IVs out of my arm. I was screaming and crying, and I was just scared. I mean, I was this little girl, 3, 4, 5 years old, all the way up until 10. And that was a regular thing. I'd be in the hospital for a week or two, about 4 or 5 times every year for at least, 7 or 8 years of my childhood. I couldn't, do any sports. I couldn't run around outside. I couldn't do anything physical because I'd have an asthma attack. I went to the doctor's office every single week for shots and just tons and tons of medication. I had what they call, oh gosh, I'm going to forget it. It's like a puffy face. Um, there's a word for it, but when you take steroids, you get really puffed out. And it was pretty traumatic. So I really hated the world, myself, my parents, God, life, everything. Like, I mean, they were keeping me alive. I was surviving, but I wasn't living. I really wasn't living at all. And there was a time when I was sitting in front of the pantry at one of my houses, and there was a bunch of like supplements there, but medications too and stuff. And I just really sat there and thought, you know what? I could just take this whole bottle of Advil or whatever it is and just let this be over with. And I don't know, something in me couldn't do it. Probably because I was too mad. I don't know.
Too mad at the world.
Mad at the world. And then when I got towards middle school and high school, puberty really changed things for me. So the hormones that changed in my body somehow made my asthma less severe. So I wasn't going to the hospitals many times. I still went a few more times until I was about 25. But middle school, high school, I started to be able to breathe. I still couldn't do as much physical activity, but I appeared to be more normal. Oh, I just remembered another story that I could tell you, but about the fire station. Remind me if I forget. But so then when I got into high school, I didn't know how to cope with the trauma of my childhood at all. So what did I do? I sought attention, validation. High school is when you start getting interested in relationships. So I was boy crazy, and I started drinking a lot, because I didn't have any tools, and that led me into college as well. So it was pretty hard. And, over the years, like I said, I really went from hating myself, the world, everyone, to a place now where I love life. I love my friends. I love my family. I love, it's not to say that I don't have hard times. Of course I do. But, I'm just in a place of more love, and I have skills and tools to be able to be a better person, to be able to deal with my mental health. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I think that's amazing. I mean, we have known each other for years now. I mean, it's been almost 5, well, 4 or 5 years now at this point.
Mhm.
And the Casey that I met originally and the Casey that is here today, two very different people. And I know that I have expressed that to you in the past as we have gone through multiple trainings together and building more and more tools as we go along. But I see that when I first met you, there was still some of that validation, like the looking for validation and trying to find where you fit a little bit in the world and this space. And over time, as we both have gained more tools, more confidence, more self-worth, it just radiates. And I know that even through being diagnosed and having to go through everything that you have, it seems, at least from the outside, just so much more strength. Like there's so much more strength there. And I know that you utilized a lot of the tools, especially that we learned last summer, to be able to go through this process. And even I know the hair, right? The hair is huge, especially, I mean, always like full set of hair, really long. And I know that as you started to lose it, it was really big for you. And so it's amazing to hear you and see you say that you're embracing where you're at currently. You know that it can grow out, that, or grow back, that it doesn't define you. And being able to showcase and share this story with everybody is just incredible too.
Thank you, Kelly. I mean, I so appreciate your words, and I love our journey together because I could say the same thing for you, how much I've seen you grow and change in these last 5 years or so. And we both have been doing the work, right? We've been doing a lot of work on our mental health, our physical health, our all aspects, our emotional health. And it's really powerful to step into a place of knowing that you don't have to live where you were. You don't have to be in that pain. And I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not easy to, we have to seek, whether it's therapy or coaching, or our mentors. We have the same mentor, Heidi, and she's just done so much for me in my life, like given me this hope. And I'll never forget. And I believe you were there when I did the tears. You were there when I did the tears one with Heidi on the video screen. It was one of George's weekends.
I don't know.
And maybe you weren't there, but I remember sitting there and Heidi was doing some NLP coaching with me. I was like the example in front of the whole class. So when everyone could learn this process. And I remember sitting there just saying, I want to touch base with a deeper level of my own vulnerability and be me everywhere, because I was compartmentalized. Like, here's the recovery me, here's the spiritual me, here's the physical me, here's the coach me. And I just wanted to be me. And I told her, I said, whenever I want to tap deeper into that, I cry. I just cry. And I'm not a cry baby, but I'm just really emotional. Like, I cry easily because I'm so passionate. I care so much, but I can't function in the world if every time I'm like crying. So we did this amazing process, and we moved the tears down to my toes, and that's where they hang out. And when they need to come up, they come up appropriately. And when they don't, they don't. And so my level of vulnerability has changed dramatically over the years. Because for me, I want to live in a world where we can be transparent, like what you're doing. We're talking about suicide. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about things that 10 years ago were taboo, that we couldn't talk about, and that's with my breast cancer channel, a playlist channel. I'm sharing in these videos, and so many people have mentioned to me, like, I'm so grateful that you shared that, because now I kind of know what might happen, or you're helping me with your vulnerability. And I think that's where more what I know what you're doing and what I'm doing, we want more of the world to understand that, you don't need to live with shame and guilt. You can be yourself. And there are so many other people out there who can relate and connect with you, and we can support each other.
Yeah, I don't think I was there for that one, but that sounds really cool because it is, I mean, and it's not okay to feel your emotions and have those expressions, but when it is something that's consistently coming up and there's not like a way through it, or it just shuts down your whole body, there is a way for you to be able to move it like down to your toes, which I think is really amazing. And also, I thought it was really interesting you talking about how you compartmentalize different sections of you. I don't think I've heard you say that before. And it's interesting to think like, well, this is me as this person, right? This is me as this person, and so on and so forth. But being a whole of all of that together. So, how did you like shift that from being compartmentalized into the whole being?
That's a great question. I feel like part of that journey for me was, first of all, to realize, to become aware that I was compartmentalizing myself, because I had like my spiritual friends and my recovery friends, and I, I also have ADHD, which I haven't mentioned, which is also a big part of my mental health. But part of ADHD is kind of camouflaging. It's like trying to make yourself fit in to wherever you are. So that has been a big part of my life. Like, I want these people to like me, that external validation, right? So I'm going to act like this here. And I'm not going to say these things over here that I would say over there. So like, it's interesting that that you haven't heard me say that, because I've shared it quite a few times, but in different circles, right? So for me, even bringing it here is like opening it up. So again, it started with that session with Heidi of like, I don't want to separate myself in all these spaces. I just want to be free and really be me. And so I believe NLP was a huge part of that. You know, we have practice groups. I continually get coached. I coach people. And through going through these different practices or processes and coaching, there's a lot of self-awareness that comes up. I realize like, oh, here's a place where I would say this in my recovery therapy group, but I wouldn't say it here. And then as soon as I had that awareness, I'm like, well, why wouldn't I say it there? I want to say it there. And then, so, having some anchors and doing different processes where I'm like, I can take this and put it over here. I can anchor this here and anchor it over there. So it's been a real intentional, deliberate process that I would say is many things, as the coaching, but also my spiritual work, and just being tired of trying to fit molds in different places. Like, I just, and this breast cancer diagnosis has really even exploded that anymore, even more, because I'm like, frick, here I am, and this is what I'm going through, and I just don't care anymore what other people say. I mean, and again, I say that, but then I did with my hair. There's different levels, and I just, I'm just want to be me. If people don't like or accept me, that's not my problem. It's none of my business, you know.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so I know that a lot of times I've talked on the show about NLP, but if you're watching this for the first time, it is neuro linguistic programming, and it's something that myself and Casey have been through the training. But it just is an amazing modality or resource that you can utilize, whether it's in therapy or in coaching. And what I would love to do is we're going to go to a quick commercial break. But once we come back, maybe we can talk a little bit more about um, how we become whole, but then also like what has this journey really brought out even more in you, as you started alluding to. So we'll be right back after this message from our sponsor. And like that, we're back.
We're back.
So if you are just joining us now, thank you for tuning in. As a reminder, if you're watching this on YouTube, please mash down that subscribe button or add us to your wish list or watch list or whatever it's called, so that you don't miss another episode. But Casey and I were chatting about really her journey, even from birth. And I love how you intertwine your last name and fight, because you really truly are a fighter, and having to have asthma and lots of medications as you grew up through life. And then now, and most recently, going through the experience of a diagnosis with breast cancer. And you were talking about really like neurolinguistic programming or NLP, how that has been so helpful in your life, but also I know that you are a trainer, a teacher, whatever you want to call it, for yoga, and specifically more so with kids. And so I would love to hear a little bit about how all of these tools that you have gained over the past several years, how that really has helped you move through, especially this diagnosis.
Yeah, great question. I love that you brought in my yoga teaching because I hadn't even mentioned that yet. But I have been teaching yoga for about 25 years, and mindfulness, again, before they called it mindfulness, right? They called it meditation, but we changed that because it's more secular as mindfulness. Um, so I felt like when I was practicing yoga or when I was with kids, I could be very present in the moment. But when I was sitting at my computer trying to work on my business or doing something else, I was like, more frantic and frenetic. And when I found NLP, actually it was interesting because I was in this relationship and the partner at the time was like, you're always generalizing, you're always saying always and never and I was like, I don't know how to change that. I was always vague in my communication. And when I found NLP, I was like, oh my God, these people get me. NLP gets me because one of the things we talk about from the beginning is how we generalize, distort, and um,
Delete.
delete. There it was. See, I deleted it. I
Yep.
was going to say disassociate, which is also deleting, right? But deleting's better. So yeah, generalize, distort, and delete. Thank you. I still have a little chemo brain. But I was just fascinated with the fact that I had this strong spiritual life. I was kind of struggling more with my business life, and I had been a coach for many years, but the NLP training and coaching was really like the missing piece because with NLP, what we do is we become aware of maybe a belief that's not serving us. And then, we want to choose to change it, but we can't just like, I'm just going to change it like that because I decided. We go through processes where we actually see where is it in our body. So we go into a deeper, like for me, it's a mind body connection. So we tap into our unconscious, we tap into the part of ourselves that's kind of running the show, but we don't know it's running the show, right? Kind of like the Truman Show. Right? I love that movie. It's like this is all happening, but he doesn't know it, right? And so that's a spoiler if you haven't seen the movie, but it's an old movie now. But I feel like that's really what NLP has done for me because I've been able to almost integrate more of the spiritual part of me with more of the material cognitive part of me and bring them together in a way where I tap down into, oh, I didn't actually realize that this negative belief had the same intention of what I'm trying to do over here. They were the same, but I was letting this run me, the negative belief, in a way that was sabotaging myself. And so I could uncover that with awareness, having some acceptance or acknowledging that that's the way it is, and then taking action to change it after I've become aware that it's living in my body. And there's so many processes that we do. Some of them are closed-eyed, where we get into this kind of quiet space of breathing and trusting and just letting it be led, and others are where we're just talking in very clean language and getting really clear and specific about how we're showing up, because our words have power, right? If I say, oh, I hate the sun out there, like I don't need to say hate, right? Like I might dislike it or something, because those powerful words really affect our bodies as well. And bringing this full circle to my current breast cancer situation, what I've really learned from this journey and integrating it in with my NLP is that my heart wasn't open enough to really receive support and other people and love. Um, and I came into a place where I needed that. And I just kind of cracked open. Is like, I'll receive, I'll take it. I need support, and people have been supporting me in amazing ways. So, NLP, I did some NLP processing around that too, because I'm like, yes, no, yes, no, I'll take it. No, no, that's too much, and the truth is I'm worthy, I'm whole, and I deserve to have that. And so NLP is a process to continually do that. And things come up and we forget, and then we need to do some more NLP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I
I
mean,
mean,
it's the
it's
cycle, right? You, at least I know that within myself too, is like there's a cycle of you like stop yourself, but you really want it to be continual. And for whatever reason, we like hold ourselves back. And I think that's important to understand and identify within yourself. And how you shifted your language even earlier was, it's not that I have cancer, it's I experience cancer. And that is a big deal too, of your diagnosis, your disease, whatever it may be, doesn't clearly define you. You are not cancer. Cancer is not you. You may experience it or be living with it, but it doesn't have to define exactly who you are and what you're doing right now. And I think that's really important that you mention words have power. The words that we say to ourselves, the words that we say to others, they really truly have power. And if I believe that I'm going to die from this, I probably am. If I believe that I'm going to live and I'm going to survive and I'm going to be a warrior and I'm going to be, that strong person, then that's what is going to show up versus that unworthiness or the sadness or whatever it might be. And I think that is huge, especially with the mindset shifts of how is this going to show up in my life? How am I going to show up in my life? And how, like you said, how am I going to receive, like really receive,
Yeah.
not not the, yeah, thank you so much. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, yeah, no, right? We really have to open that up, that space. And it's something I'm working on, even myself. Like, I am not the best at receiving by any means. I am very much a giver. I want to give, 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 but I have to learn how to receive to be able to give more. And I know that with any diagnosis or illness or challenge that happens to present to us as humans, it does open up this other space. But being able to have those tools is huge. That it just
Yeah.
sounds huge.
And you know what? Also, you mentioned like I think this is also a female thing. Many of us as women have trouble receiving because we are the caretakers. But if I don't receive, if you don't receive, then people who want to give can't give if people aren't receiving, right? You have to have both. You have to give and take, give and receive. So yeah, it's important, I think, for all of us to receive as well as give. And you mentioned something earlier that really made me think about, for mental, and I'm sure you've talked about this a lot. Mental health is an invisible um, thing. I don't know what the word is there, but it's
Yeah.
invisible, right? You can't see people's mental health. So for me, like when I was sick, you could see that if I'm wheezing or I have asthma, I have issues. But like addiction is invisible. Suicidal tendencies are invisible. And for me, I think most, and my ADHD is invisible. So people don't see it. They think, oh, well, you just forgot something. I'm like, no, that's 10 times a day, 24/7, 365, So the invisibility is challenging. And for me, and I also worked on my mental health to handle that visibility, right? Positive and negative ways. The camouflaging, kind of negative; vulnerability, more positive. But when this happened with my hair, it's a real common thing. Like if I was bald and I cold capped, and that's why I could talk about this some other time, but I kept 20% of my hair. I was hoping to keep 50 or more. But if I was bald and I walked out in the world, people are like, she probably has cancer, or if they see me like this, she might have cancer. And that's hard because that's a visible thing. So part of this with my identity is I walk out into the world looking very different. And whether people know me or not, they know that something is different, right? Now it's a visible thing. And have someone who has experienced cancer, and I love that you caught that. Um, I don't want to go out in the world and people like, oh, Casey, you've had cancer. Oh, you poor thing. And it still kind of happens because people don't know how to deal with mortality, right? Because when you think of cancer, people think, well, it's either going to go away or they're going to die. And it's not those two extremes. A lot of people live with cancer. A lot of people can survive with stage 4 cancer, which I didn't really know either until I got into this journey. But there's a lot of assumptions that come up. And to me, this is the epitome of mental health, right? We as human beings judge others on appearance of what we see, and that and we judge ourselves, and that kind of breaks down our health in a mental way, because we get into insecurities and all those things. So I think it's just so important that we take advantage of tools that are available, like NLP, mindfulness, all the things that we can do to bring ourselves back to wholeness, and just keep continually working on that growth, because you're worth it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know that you have a lot of tools at your fingertips. I mean, you are getting a master's in spirituality.
It's consciousness studies is the name of it, which is crazy. I'm getting a master's in consciousness studies, like studying consciousness.
Yeah, I'm like, I know there's a different word for it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but you have that, you also have your yoga, you have your NLP, you have all these tools, and really being able to combine all of them into this journey that you're experiencing. And I know, like you said, I mean, a physical ailment is visible, and we tend to judge based off of looks or what's happening instead of asking those layered questions to get more understanding. And that's why I love doing the show, is because we can have these conversations, and it doesn't always have to be, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like when people come to me, as far as my sister, when I say my sister completed suicide, most of the times it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm like, well, you didn't really do anything, so you don't need to be sorry,
yeah,
right? That's my initial response, and maybe one thing that triggers me. But I've talked to survivors, right, of loss, and they oftentimes relay that too, is I don't need you to feel sorry for me. Like if you want to understand, just ask questions. And I am, at least for me, and I know you are, we are open books. We're willing to have these type of conversations, because the more we can talk about it, the more we break down that stigma around all of these things. And asking questions isn't going to hurt my feelings. It's actually showing that you care and that you want to learn more about my situation, versus having all those assumptions come into play. And so I am curious, when somebody comes to you, because I've never been in the space of experiencing cancer, what would be something that you would maybe want them to say when they're wondering what's going on?
yeah. It's a little bit tricky because I first of all, I usually don't want people to comment on my appearance. Like I am more than my appearance, right? Some people will say, "How are you feeling?" And then they won't stick around for what I have to, if I say, well, I've been kind of a feeling, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I got to go, or they, as you were talking, I was thinking about empathy and compassion. Like there's a huge lack of empathy and compassion in our society. So, if someone say, how are you feeling? I'm like, well, you know what, today I feel a little bit worse than yesterday. Yesterday was a good day, but today my joints are achy, and my knee started hurting. I had knee surgery 25 years ago, but because of the chemotherapy, even though it's been several months, my knee is bothering me because I'm having trouble, my body's having trouble building muscle back, because chemo kind of destroyed that muscle. And not many people are really interested in hearing some of those details. They just want to hear, oh, you're good, or oh, you're not doing well. Oh, I'm sorry. The same thing, they'll say, oh, I'm sorry that you're dealing with that, or you have cancer. Oh, I'm sorry that you have cancer. I'm like, the same way. It's a bit of a trigger. Like, why are you sorry? You didn't do this. If you really are sorry, then you could talk to me about it and sit here. Like, people are like, what can I do for you? I'm like, come sit with me when I'm in pain. Come hang out with me and, help me do something. I had people, I had moved in the middle of this journey, right in the middle of chemotherapy. And that was part of that receiving, right? I finally was like, I'm having a packing party, and I invited people to my house. And you know how hard it is to have other people pack your stuff,
Right.
And I'm just like, I can't do it. Pack all those frames, they wrapped up all my frames and did it. So, I think if people aren't willing to stick around to hear and ask questions and really sincerely be there, then I don't want them to ask me how I'm doing. I just want them to say hi, or glad you're here, and then not have a conversation, because it gets into that fake, that fakeness. I don't like that, or, I no longer say fine when people say, how are you feeling? I don't say I'm fine. Say, well, I'm going through some stuff. Do you want to hear about it or not? Or,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sorry you have cancer, and I could say to them, well, how do you feel about cancer? you
Mm.
know because you could say that with suicide. How do you feel about suicide? Because then it almost turns it back onto them to help them maybe open up to what are they feeling about these scenarios that are challenging.
Yeah, I didn't even, I mean, I don't think I've ever reflected that back to anybody, but that is really interesting to reflect it with a question, but that does open up this other space of, are you really interested in having this conversation, or is it like the automatic thoughts, like the, hey, how are you doing? Great. How are you doing? Great. The
And
surface level.
I wouldn't ask that question to everybody. You have
Right.
to have rapport with them. You have to have a connection, and that would be. So I can't say that I've done it a lot.
Yeah, right. You're like, "Eh." But it is, I mean, that one thing you said, like, just come sit with me, right? It's the listening, not judgmentally, or just sitting while you're in pain, or helping during packing. Those are practical things that we can do to help others, no matter what experience they're going through. And I
Mhm.
think that's just an important tool for people to have, is what's that practical help that you can help others with, and have the conversation. Would it be helpful for them or not helpful for them?
Mhm.
And I really appreciate you sharing your journey. And I know that, I've seen so much um change and things that have happened throughout your life, and I love our little community of people. And I think that's a big part of it too, is having that tribe of those people that are like-minded and readily available, I guess, to
Yeah.
be able to have those conversations. And so I'd love for you to just share a little bit of information if somebody wants to follow your journey, or wants to maybe have that conversation with you. How would they be able to find you?
Yeah. So I've mentioned, like, my YouTube channel. I have a playlist that's been my cancer journey. And one thing I haven't shared yet is, for a while I really didn't like my last name as Fight. This was, a couple years ago. Kelly, you know this. So I started calling myself Casey Love, instead of Fight, or Courageous Casey. I mean, Courageous Casey is a name I like to use a lot because it reminds me to continue to be courageous. So, if people want to, I know you'll share links and stuff. If they want to get a hold of me, they can watch that video, or go to my website, Fun and Healthy Lifestyles. I have some yoga classes there, and I'm bringing in my coaching. And so I'm still kind of in that place of redeveloping a bit of online, I should say, all my practices and putting them in one place. So Fun and Healthy Lifestyles, or Casey at funandhealthylifestyles.com.
Nice. So fun
Yeah.
and healthy lifestyles. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put it up so that
That's been
everybody
my
can
my
see.
business name for a long time, Fun and Healthy Lifestyles. At one point, it was aligned with the 7 chakras and these 7 practices, which all of them are things I live, which is coaching, which is yoga, which is meditation, mindfulness, and nutrition and physical activity. So that got a little complicated. So it's fun and healthy lifestyles, because one last thing is, I think humor is a huge thing that we need to bring into our mental health. And, I showed you my Jack Nicholson hair, like, it's important to bring humor in. And when you can kind of laugh at yourself or let go of things, you're just lighter. I mean, that's, to me, that's a very healthy way to be. And that affects my mental health in big ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did, when I went to it, it popped up this full website. So
yeah, that's the redirect. So you can just go to funandhealthylifestyles.com. You don't have to know all that, but
know all that. Okay. Let me here. I'm going to shorten it just so that
just copy it before you hit return.
Right. I'm like, wait, it redirected.
Yeah. While you're doing that, I have on there, I have a 30 days to reduce stress that are fun. Actually, I'm saying that wrong. Again, my chemo brain is still coming back, but there's 30 days on there. So you can subscribe, and every single day you'll get 3 yoga poses, 2 mindfulness practices, and 1 breathing practice. I think it's 2 breathing practices and 1 mindfulness. I don't know. There's the dyslexia in me. Anyways, they're only 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. But they're really great if you're new to those practices and you want to dive in and do some of that. So that's on there as well.
Awesome. So one more time, funandhealthylifestyles.com. So grab Casey's 30 days, and whatever is on there, I promise you it is going to be amazing and helpful and all those things. But Casey, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show and just sharing your journey. And of course, I mean, we are connected for life. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. I've loved being here with you, and can't wait to see where we both go.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. Casey really shared her journey, her warrior story through even from birth till now. And I mean, sometimes we're like, why really, like, why is this happening? But it's all about how the words that we say, how that journey really translates, what tools that we have in our tool belt. And I know that my guests, myself, and previous guests have talked a lot about NLP and neuro-linguistic programming, but it is one of those modalities that is really, really helpful, and it helps build in a lot of that choice, the resources, the wholeness that Casey was talking about. And if you want to follow her journey, again, you can go to funandhealthylifestyles.com and grab her 30 days. Either way, make sure that you join us again. Next show will be on Monday at 11 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And then we also have next Wednesday. And I promise you, you will not want to miss my next few guests. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.
Greetings, I'm Angel Marie Monticelli, host of Energize You TV, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. Go to Fresh Takes right here on E360 and get Reikified and energized today.